So my goal for this speech is to learn a little bit about my ancestry and my family's past, and just kind of things that were part of their culture that I didn't know about, because the cryptid that I chose is from Spain, where I have a lot of family and have also had a lot of family live, grow up, and everything. So my speech, the name of it is The Fishman of Yirganas, is basically the story of this young man named Francisco de la Verga, who disappeared while swimming, and then years later, some fishermen found a human-like creature, but he had scales on his stomach, and was kind of like fish-like, and they captured him, and the only word he said was Yirganas, but this was a long ways away from Spain, so they didn't know what that meant. And then some Spanish guy was like, oh, that's really close to my hometown. So they took him home, and then he lived with his mom for 9 years, and then maybe his brothers and family, until he couldn't take it anymore and went back to live in the sea. So that's the very short, condensed version of his story. So, like I said, I chose this mostly because of its Spanish history. I have a lot of family in and from Spain, and I was just really interested in it. I have been to Spain, and met a lot of family and everything, but I haven't really learned too much about their culture or anything, so I'm kind of excited to dive into this. And then kind of the thing that makes this a little bit audience-centered, one thing specifically is that it's very family-based, so there's kind of a cool thing of how your family will always accept you and bring you back. Things like that kind of makes it a little bit different. So my intro, I wanted, and kind of why it's different, so I wanted to really lean into the family thing and the bringing it back to accept your family, and how there's still so much love that your family's gonna have, unconditional love, all this stuff. And then the one thing that makes this story very unique is there's a lot of specific dates given, and cities, and a lot of different accounts, and just very specific things that don't really come with a lot of these vague stories that, oh, someone saw it in the middle of the night, things like that. So my kind of main points, I was going to talk about the origin, the legend, the story of it, and then kind of talk about maybe the fact versus folklore, kind of how it is so specific, and why that could have been, or what could have been going on there. Just the distinction between that, and then the kind of social impact that it has, mostly on the people of Spain, and why the story is told still, why it has carried on, what that story means to the people culturally, and maybe just impact and everything like that. So the kind of story that I'm going to tell is really, like I said, the origin of, who's a guy, he went swimming, he went missing, they thought he died. All these fishermen a long time ago found this thing. He said Yirgana, some Spanish guy found. He was like, oh, that's my hometown, or nearby to my hometown, something like that. And then, brought him home, lived with his family, things like that. And how they thought it was his long lost son, and there were very specific things about his behavior and things that made it kind of memorable. So kind of maybe for ending the presentation, maybe talk about family ties, how your family's always going to love you, bring you back, and then how, what it really means for the Spanish people, maybe something like that. That's kind of the idea that I have right now. I don't really have any questions about the presentation. Maybe the only thing I could think of is if there is a specific, I want you to talk about you know, the story, then the impact, then the, I don't know, current events now, something like that. I'm assuming there's not, but if there is, let me know. The outline. It was pretty easy. The thesis statement at the very beginning, I couldn't really find it. It was kind of jumbled in with the other things, and then everything else was pretty easy to fill in. I feel like there were some points, though, that she made. She brought up Japan, but right before that, she brought up, like, some point that she only said a sentence about that didn't really tie into anything else, other than it had to do, like, with the creature as a whole. So a lot of it was like, oh, like, why are you saying that? So what I really liked about it was that there were good visuals. I liked the pictures that she chose, and it kind of made a lot of sense in context and everything. And then I also really appreciated that she knew what she was saying, and you could tell that she knew what she was saying. She wasn't, just coming up with stuff on the spot. That was very direct, and her timing was well and everything. So I think she did a really good job about that. Things I didn't really like, the presentation, kind of like I said, was a little bit jumbled. It didn't have a storyline. It kind of just told two, I think, particular instances and stories of it. There wasn't really much of like an impact or a lasting thing on it. That, I mean, like, there was, but it didn't really dive into it. Excuse me. And then I think, at least to me, her conclusion was kind of messy. Honestly, to me, it sounded like she said the same sentence 3 different times. So I wasn't a huge fan. That might have just been me, but yes. One thing that she should do to fix the things, I think, that she should have different talking points, so cultural significance, and not just, like, multiple stories of the sightings. And if she does want to tell multiple stories, maybe make them more concise so that they could fit into the presentation and the timing and everything. And then I just think she needed to reword the conclusion and kind of just cut it in half at that point. So yes. And then what I think she did well, like I said, I really liked the visuals, so I also think she could improve, of course, on those. So I want to make sure that my visuals are very clear and tie into exactly what I'm saying very well, and, it's not just like a picture to have a picture. And it kind of also tells and carries the story along and things like that. I really liked that she seemed interested in what she was talking about. There seemed like a very good tie into what she was saying, so I thought that was very important. So I kind of want to copy and mimic that energy. And then finally, like I said, you could tell she knew the material well. So I think that that's really important, and I want to be able to also be very familiar with the material that I'm speaking about. Thank you.